Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Art of Slowing Down podcast. It is your host here, Annalena. And today I have an amazing guest with me. Her name is Yvonne Stoltzfus. I hope I say that correctly.
You did
Yes.
good.
Okay. Because I was like, oh my God, I didn't ask her before we got on.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
It's German background.
So proud of myself. And she actually connected with me last week. We're going to tell a little bit more about the story in just a little bit, but I'm just going to share your bio for now, and then we're going to have a really, really beautiful conversation. So Yvonne is an author, artist, and creative leader. She's a certified spiritual director with nearly 3 decades of lived experience in home and hospitality. And Yvonne's soulful work infuses wisdom with practical guidance. Through her writings, teachings, and heart-centered workshops, she invites a sense of beauty in the ordinary, seeing the natural world with fresh eyes. And I'm also going to share the paragraph because she wrote a book. I have it here in my hands. It's amazing. I already started reading it. So she says, I'm going to read it in your I form. You can listen to that yourself. Let it sink in for yourself. So I recently wrote a book. This is Yvonne talking about my relationship with my mother and my relationship to myself. My mother has always played a lead role in my story. It has taken a lifetime to untangle threads. It wasn't until her death that I felt free to look at it, free to not protect her or me. I wanted to be done with my story, buried beside my mother's grave. Yet to move beyond it, I had to go through it, writing it down, forced my hand and my heart to stay with the story to the end, and then rewrite it. Take what I want to keep and leave the rest. Staying with the pieces and gathering them, I gathered myself. There is creative power in pain. Crafting a new narrative, our wounds became the womb where we learn to love ourselves. The pleasure of feeling is inviting women to be nurtured through simple stillness, soulful creativity, and natural beauty. I had goosebumps all over my body several times. And it was, I had to read this. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So this is your book, and we're gonna talk much more about it. I wanted to share a little bit with the listeners how we met, how this all came about, because I think that's always so profound to tell the stories behind, right? You wanna actually share that?
Sure. It was about exactly a year ago, and I was in the throes of writing the book. I actually did not know my way, and I had a ton of self-doubt finding my way. And I was at the point where I was very tired of paying anybody anymore. And then this email came through from Lena that said, it's free. I'm asking for just a little paragraph about what you would want the infinity healing to be around. And so I wrote about self-doubt, and you responded that you would like to offer the free infinity healing to me. And so the timing was just right. And I just felt so held in your space. I remember writing back, it just felt like a prayer, that healing and that hour. And so, because I was in pretty crippling self-doubt, even around writing the book or sharing the book. So that's how we met. And then you felt very familiar to me, is what I also said. And we realized we both have the 44 gate and gene key. So that was a pretty powerful connection. And then you said, when you're ready, come to my podcast. So I guess I'm ready.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I felt like, well, it's like I let it go also, no? There was no pressure or anything with that. And I was so happy when I got your email like about a month ago, I think.
Yeah.
So this is what happened, right? She wrote the book.
Yeah.
It's here. And I said this, right? It's not like, oh, it's because of the infinity healing session, everything. But I think it was a big part of everything, right? And this like synchronistic experience, because I remember at the time I had this intuitive guidance to offer, I think I offered 3 infinity healings for free. And I have to actually point the finger at myself here right now. My intention was, and because we have the podcast today, I'm going to make this commitment. I'm going to do it. I wanted to give these infinity healings away for free. So other people, because it's just my voice and listening, right? And I can just record my end of my voice from the recording. Because of course, you receiving the infinity healing, you don't have to say much. It's basically the way it gets activated is through your sacred yeses. So whatever I say based on the topic and the conversation we have had, so it's very customized to the situation. You can say then yes to it, or you don't have to. It's totally in your power to, activate this healing for you. But it's about powerful intention setting. Yeah. And so I have to say, I haven't done this yet. I did put a couple of course, I have done a lot of infinity healings. I have also given for the chakras away for free, but I'm making this commitment right now. I need this for my own accountability. When you listen to this episode, the infinity healing that Yvonne received, you can get this for free. You just grab the link below here in the show notes of this podcast and let the magic unfold, because I think it opened up a lot. Like, what started to happen for you from this point on?
It was still very difficult for about another 6 months, but I did feel shored up. I felt more grounded, and I listened to that after our time together. I think for the next few days, I listened to it numerous times, and I also went back to it a few different times, in the past year. So I think it's very ongoing, and self-doubt isn't the worst thing. It is a catalyst, and so accepting that, but still doing the action. I think that's where I found myself, crawling to the finish line if you have to.
Yeah. And I love you share this, because we often have this idea like, oh, you're going to do the healing and the next day your life is going to change, right? It's like this. We often talk about these quantum leaps, and I think quantum leaps can happen, but more when we not expect them. But that's what I have noticed myself with the infinity healing, is that it gently, surely, steadily sets things into motion, which, especially for us that are like highly sensitive, more introverted, empathic, it's not like this shock to the nervous system, right? It's kind of like it gradually, and it's actually also normal that in the beginning, when we do like a healing, a lot of the shadows actually come up, because in order to connect to our highest, most powerful self, or what you believe in yourself, you're more confident. It's all within us, right? We have to let go of what's kind of hiding that, like the self-doubt, the whatever other stories we have in our heads, right? So that's also, I mean, the gene keys, it's all about patience, going slow, and we're not pushing it, we're not forcing it. And now again, I mean, I really have this book here in my hand right now. It's so beautiful, and I would love for you to talk about it, the pleasure of healing.
Yeah, it's as you were speaking, I was really feeling the process, and how it unfolded for me was that self-doubt was there, really serving a purpose. And I was pretty committed to going a certain way with healing. And that self-doubt that eventually even really started to mess with my nervous system. I felt like I couldn't think straight, like I was so anxious. I felt like I was, going to be sick if I couldn't work my way through this. And so what happened in the end through writing the book was I really wrote my story of my mother, but I in the end was able to kind of disidentify or disentangle from my definition of healing and helping people. Because as I write in the book, I've always felt my mother's pain, and thereby I often felt other people's pain. I was very good at teasing out people's pain. I mean, I would just go to any random party or function, and my husband would notify me in the corner talking to some woman about her, her just spilling her I don't want to say secrets, but like kind of unloading the burden. And I just knew I didn't want to build a business on that, partly because I sort of already had done that version of things. And the pleasure piece came in before I even understood what I was talking about. But now at the end, having gone through the book, I really want to help bring pleasure, simple pleasures into our lives, ordinary pleasures that are in front of us all the time that really, it seems we're often too busy to notice, or we think
Mhm.
we'll circle back around to them. I mean,
Mhm.
I've done that, it's even the way the sunlight is coming in the window at a certain moment, and it might be hitting a certain place in the room, and we catch it for a glimpse, but we're very often in a hurry
Yeah.
to the next task. And then you almost think, oh yeah, I'll enjoy that later, but
Mhm.
it's in the actual moment. So the process of writing the book was really unlike anything I've experienced to date. But in the end, I feel that self-doubt is leaving by taking the action of sharing this book and taking the
Mhm.
action of the direction I want to go with women, which is helping to create a sacred space in your home so that you can feel that pause in your actual body. You can feel your breath deepen. You can feel your body slow down. Um, and just with a cup of tea and a beautiful surrounding, like there doesn't even have to be an agenda. So that just feels really good at the end of this. But in the meantime, I really shared from my heart my story with my mother.
Yeah.
And it always makes me cry.
It's so beautiful, It's Naomi, your mother, right? I think I
Naomi.
remember from the
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Mhm.
that name. And your grandma was the same name as well?
Yes.
Yeah. You
And I
see
come
already that.
from they were both Amish women.
Yeah.
So horse and buggy. I'm the first generation to not be Amish.
Mm.
So that's a very powerful part of my story as well.
Mm.
And I have four daughters. I have a son as well, but four daughters who, have every opportunity in the world. And so I have my grandmother and my mother to thank for that.
Mm. Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I mean, oh gosh, there's so many things I want to reflect back to you and kind of go a little bit deeper on. The first thing I want to mention, so we talk about going from self-doubt to becoming more confident, right? And actually, there was a self-doubt about the writing the book. And what I really gather from what you're saying, because this is something I talk a lot lately in with my audience about, is also my experience, right? Like we have to take action, even when the self-doubt is still there. It's not like I'm gonna use now the infinity healing. You're gonna do the infinity healing a million times and sit on the couch and don't do anything, and all of a sudden, poof, the self-doubt is gonna be gone. It's more that it gets you into this groove of finally finding the spot where you actually are ready to take the action, even though there's still some level of self-doubt there, but it's not like paralyzing you anymore. And the real confidence arises as you do it, as you take the action. And I'm
Mhm.
sure now that you have written a book, there may be another level of self-doubt for some new things that are evolving right now in your life, right? Or maybe another book or sharing something new with the world.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't think it's here for us to make it go away, but to actually use it as a catalyst to step into our most empowered self. And this is also because you and I, we are so deeply into the gene keys. 44th gene key in our tropical charts is something in the gene keys human design that we really connect with. Also the 2-4 profile,
Mhm.
we both have that there. And even when you were talking about drinking the tea, being in the now and slowing down, that's really what the art of contemplation in the gene keys is all about. Especially Richard Rudd talks a lot about the with a tea. He actually is a
Yeah.
big tea fan himself from Great Britain. So I love that. And then the other thing is the whole healing process that it's actually pleasure, because I think so often we have this idea like we need to get rid of this or the healing has to be painful, but really it can actually be pleasureful and joyful.
Mhm.
And I think when we approach it this way, we get much faster to a place of also seeing the joy and the pleasure in day-to-day life, which the
Mhm.
healing is all about anyways, right? So
Mhm.
we get to be more happy and more joyful. and see the beauty that's all around us.
Mhm. Yeah, because the shadow shadows those things.
Hmm.
Our stories really keep us in our head, and they keep us in a very powerful loop that takes us out
Hmm.
of the present moment. And I know there's a lot said like, oh, just be in the present moment. I don't know if that's possible without really reckoning with those shadowy places. And I start the book by saying healing, it's not ending the way I thought it would. It's not ending. And
Hmm.
we kind of have this idea that, eventually we'll just be done with pain. But life is always offering new opportunities for pain
Hmm.
and for pleasure.
Yeah.
And I would like to give pleasure a little more airtime. And
Mhm.
yeah, there's just so much power in even moving through pain with things that bring you pleasure.
Mhm.
And it's really just very ordinary, simple things at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah, and in a way, I think it accelerates the whole process, right? Where it's
Yeah.
not like where we see it as a bad thing, because I think that's a problem in the world. We always see this like black and white in a way,
Mhm.
oh, there's the pain and I want to fix it. But what if it's just a natural part of life? And I have to say, for me, and I'm sure you can relate to this a lot, the Gene Keys have been such a catalyst for this, because just the understanding that the gift is in the shadow,
Yeah.
the pleasure is in the pain,
Yeah.
right? If we don't have the courage to go in it, and I think nature models this so beautifully. Like if the flower doesn't have the courage to stay in the darkness of the soil,
Mhm.
like the seed, the
Mhm.
flower never really comes about, right? When it's like, oh no, I don't want to be there, it's uncomfortable. But when you can be there, you can be patient. At some point, it turns into this beautiful sunflower or a big tree, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, and to trust that process. I would like to
Hmm.
learn, and I am learning to trust that process more, to not be as bent out of shape.
Mm.
Um, and the gene keys are just amazing at giving you actual language for your experience. Like my
Hmm.
attraction field is complexity that moves, into simplicity. And now
Hmm.
there's obsession around that. So I can
Yeah.
get like this book, complete obsession. Not
Hmm.
with the end result, just with like every minutia of it.
Hmm.
But then in the end, it's a super simple read.
It is.
So I had to move through that complexity, and I am now able to own that process. I used to really see
Hmm.
myself as kind of freakish in how I would like, I kept that process a secret. But working with this book, the lady I was working with on the other end, I mean, she saw every bit of my obsession. And so that was like very uncomfortable because usually it's
Mhm.
just me with me, but it was super
Mhm.
helpful also. So
Mhm.
just an example of the gene key, if you have those words, you can see your process, and
Yeah.
it's very, very transformative. I love the gene keys.
Yeah, it's the 23rd, right? The simplicity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. No, that's also the beautiful thing, right? We are also meant to work with other people, attract other people into our lives, to work through our shadows. It's not always like,
Mm.
like the lady, I guess, working with the book with you, like, hey, here we're going into too many details or too much, or when you say the obsession, right? And it doesn't have to be so complex, and
Mhm.
helps us come back to the simplicity, because that's really what I feel when I was reading the book. It's
Mm.
light, it's simple, but so profound
Mm.
and really transformative,
Mm.
because it gives this, yeah, pleasureful energy to healing itself, where it's something you actually look forward to, you know.
Mm.
And I mean, I think we all will continue always our entire life to have something to heal, right? Um,
Yeah.
and how does it feel for you? Because, you know, when we as a generation where we're at right now, like you make the decision to heal those wounds, and let's talk about, I mean, this can physically, emotionally, probably it's all tied together, right? Because we also impact our past generations, like your mother, your grandmother. Probably, I think we always say it goes like 7 generations back and 7 generations in the future. Like, how does it feel? Because it's also going to impact your daughters, your grandkids, and more.
Yeah. I moved through at least, I would say, 2 to 3 years of enormous grief. And I realize now I was grieving even for my mother and my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother, this is going to sound unbelievable, but it's actually true. She had 15 children within 20 years.
15. Wow.
Yeah. And so the physical burden, the emotional burden, and then the way of life, being an Amish woman. And then I know that she was deeply sensitive. I never met her. She passed before I was born, but I can
Mm-hmm.
feel that sensitivity, which was highly sensitive. Um, and then I experienced that in my mother, and then I myself am, and then all four of my daughters have the 19th gene key, which is highly
Wow.
sensitive. So I just see that progression. And so
Mm-hmm.
learning to hold room for that within myself and then articulate that to my daughters, because particularly my older two daughters, I wasn't really well regulated, maybe. I was always overextending 10 steps ahead, which led to being more rigid and controlling. I mean, we had a lovely home life, but still those energetic things
Mm-hmm.
were there.
Mm-hmm.
And then with my mom, I'm one of 8 children, and we went through some very severe, hard times, which she was keeping the burden of that way more. My
Wow.
father was not mentally well, so he almost didn't know those things were existing, how they
Mm-hmm.
impacted her. So through those generations, I could see myself living the same patterns, even though my home life and my husband's support was always there. I was still living in this place of needing to be very rigid or controlling
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
overextending myself. So yeah, it's the best gift you can give your children or anybody around you is to work on this, on your own healing. And
Mm-hmm.
there too, nobody can do it for you. It's full 100% ownership. And that's how I had to start the book, by saying help yourself, because
Yeah.
I have such a tendency to overextend, to want to help people
Yeah, yeah,
in a
right.
codependent way. So I was so happy when those
Mm-hmm.
words were there.
Mm-hmm.
Help yourself to the life that you want, help yourself
Mm-hmm.
to the sunshine on the front porch, help yourself
Mm-hmm.
to creating the life you want. So yeah, I think it's just a really critical piece of healing. And then you show the generation after you what that looks like. And
Yeah.
this book and the business and where I want to go is all part of that, is part of showing my daughters, you
Mm-hmm.
know, they are empowered. So I don't then want to resent them for being empowered.
Mm-hmm.
The way to not have that dynamic is to be empowered too,
Yeah.
as an older, wiser woman.
Mm. Yeah, I love this. Actually, when you were talking about how, because I know this from myself, it's always so easy to just want to help everybody else, right? And deflect from our own things in some way. And I think it's the 25th gene key that also talks about it in the shadow. I think it's the introverted part of the shadow where, or the extroverted, I'm not sure, but where it's like, yeah, we're constantly trying to help everybody else, but we're not having the capacity, or we're not ever ready to actually work on our own stuff in some way, right? And that can also then become excessive and out of balance. And of course, I think we're meant to find a balance in some way. The funny thing is, when what you describe, you work on yourself, all this other stuff almost magically takes care of itself,
Mhm.
because I think we have all heard this, like your life, everything you perceive, you see is always a reflection of your inner self, of your inner world. And we try so hard to, like, with the control, right? Or
Mhm.
trying to be rigid. I think we have all been there. Like, well, I need this to be this in my life. I need to fix this. Everything on the external, which is always hard, is probably not sustainable. And once we like let go, release, and like, you know what, let me work on my triggers, let me work on my grief and pain and all of suffering, all of a sudden, like all around us, it's almost like the lens we look through has cleared up.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden this shifts because we are energetically, especially with your mom, grandma, children, we're connected energetically so much. And it also made me realize when you were talking, especially with the amount of children your grandma had, how many people you impact.
Mm.
It's really this exponential thing, right? It's okay,
Yeah.
it's your mother and your grandma, all of their children and the children that they had and so forth, right? It's like, you know, like the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
It's like a healthy virus cleansing
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
So how powerful.
Yes. It's very powerful. We want to do it for ourselves, but if we cannot garner the courage to do it for ourselves, I think our children are always a perfect opportunity for
Mhm.
why to heal.
Yeah.
And I feel like the biggest challenge sometimes for women is receiving. Um,
Hmm.
we're just maybe taught, modeled to really kind of give ourselves um, at every point. We're the glue, I guess, is maybe how we see it.
Mm.
But there is so much pleasure in receiving. Um, and I was missing that. Like my husband is a super supportive guy, but I
Mhm.
really couldn't leave room for that. And as I'm
Mhm.
learning to leave room for that, there's so much support that shows up. It's not like it wasn't there before.
Yeah. You
I
allow it.
was just determined to do it myself, really.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and that's again coming back to that pause. I think if we never pause day to day, we almost get disoriented with where we are in the flow of giving and receiving. And that
Hmm.
is a flow. It is equally important to receive as it is to give. And
Yeah.
that receiving can be by yourself. It can be just sitting in the sun or giving yourself a good meal, or, there's
Hmm.
so many variations of how you can receive. But I
Hmm.
think that's something I'm pretty passionate about, is just turning women towards that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, definitely this giving and receiving. We fall into the extremes, right? We fall into overgiving until we're depleted. We may fall into, we can also fall into receiving too much and not creating anything because the giving has a lot to do with sharing our gifts. I mean, like what you're doing with this book, right? This is
Mhm,
really you giving it to the world and sharing that, and
mhm.
that can create so much, but this came from you receiving, right? Opening yourself up to actually receive. And I don't know if you know this, but so I have recently learned more about Kabbalah. I don't know if
Mm,
you have heard about it. Kabbalah is
I
part
have,
of
yeah.
human design, actually, right?
Yeah.
And I was never much into it, or I just didn't know much about it, to be honest. And for some reason, and I think that's just how life synchronicity also works. The last 6 months, it's just popped up everywhere on
Mm,
Instagram. And I found a guy I started to follow. I was like, oh my God. And I started to listen to it and take some of the courses.
mm.
I have been blown away. And Kabbalah actually means receiving.
Oh,
You know,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I had no idea about it. And everything that I have learned so far is so in alignment with the gene keys, with what we learn into human
Mm,
design. Apparently, the channels we have in human design, they come from the Kabbalah. So
mm,
the wisdom that I'm learning now in Kabbalah, also Kabbalah talks about the pause.
yeah.
So when you have something that triggers you or something where we're about to react, we're always being asked to slow down, take a pause, and ask the question like, well, okay, why is this in my movie? Why is this happening? And
Mm,
ask us to self-reflect. And instead of reacting to it,
mm,
because that's depleting, that's actually taking energy, good energy away, where we can like, okay, how can I respond with love?
mm.
You know, where I not come from my ego or from my wounded self, which is sometimes saying nothing, just
Yeah.
letting things be, not trying to
Mhm,
fix it. That's how we actually give. And that's how they talk about, that's how we connect to the light, which is our highest, most fulfilled self, right? And
mm.
everything that you are sharing now as well is like so in line. So it's all these universal truth and wisdom that is out there, and it just comes also beautifully together. So I
Mm.
just love it. It's so fascinating for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very fascinating. I am familiar with the Kabbalah, but I had no idea that it meant receiving. I love that. I'll
Yeah.
probably go look into that.
Yeah, I felt called to share because it has been, and I know I've said this a lot, guys who are listening probably know this, like human design has changed my life, the gene keys have changed my life, but kind of next level in a
Mhm.
way. And now and then I have also been into true sidereal astrology, which has taken human design and gene keys for me to a whole nother level. And most recently Kabbalah. And the funny thing is
Mm.
it's all also in all these systems combined. And I'm just amazed by the wisdom that is actually out there. But it comes when we're ready for it, right? It comes
Mhm.
as we work on ourselves. And right now I would literally say like Kabbalah is probably the most life-changing I have ever
Mm.
experienced. It's kind of like amplified kind of quantum leap energy because it's so profound, and
Mm.
I probably wouldn't have been ready for it 3 years ago. It wouldn't have
Mm.
talked to me. I don't know if I shared this with you, the gene keys in the beginning, when I was into human design first, the gene keys, I learned about it very quickly. I didn't understand the gene keys at all. It didn't make sense. I returned the book. I was like,
Mm.
I couldn't grasp it. And then a year later, I totally shifted.
Mhm.
We are like on our own evolution. And I think for the listeners, like, you will know what's your next step is, right? And really trusting with that. And it doesn't have to be because I'm not talking about Kabbalah or we're talking about the gene keys. That's the
Mhm.
thing. Like there's no right or wrong. Like whatever you're ready for that to take you to your next level, it will show up and your body will guide you to that. And that leads me to my next question for
Mm.
you, because we had been talking a little bit before we got on the podcast. I think you mentioned that. So you have been helping women a lot, right? Helping their change their stories and stuff like that. But your intuition right now, so your main focus, you said it's more like now on creating sacred spaces for women. And I asked you, like, do you mean like also interior design? And I think you were like, yeah, intuitively, I feel really more guided to, and it's really just the beginning. So I would love for you to share what you feel intuitively that you're more ready to let go of, and where life wants you to take.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that question. Um, in my gene keys, I have a lot of seeking gene keys. So I have been a very avid seeker for 3, 4 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I'm just want to return to the ordinary world. Not that I wasn't living there before, but I really was looking
Mm.
for something beyond the ordinary.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's sort of full circle bringing me back to the ordinary.
Mm.
I say in the book, what if we could heal through a home cooked meal? What if we could heal through moonlight and sunlight? And, for me, a big thing is beauty. So it's like, what if we could heal through beauty, through just the
Mm.
natural beauty of us? And then I really feel passionate about just having beautiful things reflected back to us that are not mass produced. Um,
And are not mass produced. I love it.
yeah, that are not mass produced. And I love finding objects, beautiful objects. And I feel, and so in the sacred space, I would love to help every woman have a corner in her home that is just for her.
Mm-hmm.
And the front cover of the book is an example of this because, it looks lush and beautiful, and it is, but it is a 5 foot by, I think it's 8 or 10 foot closet. When we had more children than bedrooms, my daughter claimed that as her little space. So this can actually be a closet. This can be any little place in your home where you can return with a rhythm and a routine and a ritual, is how I like to say it. And it's
Mm.
just super simple. It's basically, I'm saying go to the same spot every day, kind of in the same way, same time, maybe with a cup of tea. And then bring your empty hands, your open heart, your bare feet. So this is a no phone zone in my ideal world.
Yeah, thank God. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, no phone zone, no screens, no work, just
Mm.
simply being. And we are really good at the doing. We are not so good at the being.
Yeah.
So this is just an opportunity. If you can only stand 5 minutes initially, 5 minutes is good. But if it's a beautiful
Mhm.
space curated to reflect you today, I think so
Mhm.
often our homes reflect, maybe 10 years ago or even 20 years ago when we were
Mhm.
raising whatever we were doing out in the world. We almost forget to update our homes to be like an up-to-date version of us. So
Mhm.
that's what I want to help women with, just to assess a place in their home, and then I will assist you in decluttering and curating that space, and we will acquire things by shopping your home. You have beautiful objects in your home, they might be dusted over, or they're not, you know, in a place that you even enjoy the beauty of them.
Mhm.
And then I also am collecting beautiful things that I want to put physical things in physical hands. So I have a bit of a shop online, and I'm going to keep adding to that. And then just bringing in natural objects like literal bird nest, or a leaf that caught your attention, or feathers, or
Mhm.
acorns, or the natural world is the most beautiful place of all, the colors and the
Mhm.
textures, and so we can really learn from that. And yeah, I feel I am wanting to drop the heavy duty of healing, even
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
own and others, and really bring it into a much lighter place of
Mhm.
just starting with the physical world, because this is where we are. This is
Yeah.
where we find ourselves, in this physical body, in this physical
Mhm.
world. And I think just by bringing some attention and intention to that, it can be very life changing and ripple out. If you have one area of your home that you love, I can almost promise you're going to want more areas. And so it just kind
Mhm.
of benefits yourself and those around you. And yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, I love this so much because, it's also that's what happens when we get out of our head and more into the body and really listen our intuition, which is what human design and Jinkies is all about, right? Where you're like, this was a big part of my life. I've done the heavy healing. I have assisted a lot of people with that. That was for the time giving the task for you, I think. And I think
Mhm.
the ultimate, keep showing you a beautiful book. So this is the place you were talking about, which is the closet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
right.
it's just like looking at it, it's like, ah, it's
Mm,
relaxing, right?
hmm. Yeah, and
And
I'm looking outside. I think that it's really important if we can just even look outside when we're sitting.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean. It has a very I have a my kitchen has a window and it looks over a little like lake on a it's a golf
Mm,
course, but there's these beautiful big old trees that have grown over
yes.
like probably 40 years or longer.
Mm,
And just that, or even like sometimes I go outside and I sit by the lake and just
mm.
watch the trees, and then there's an iguana, and then there's a little duck walking by. And I have noticed when I just sit there, they actually come closer to me.
Oh,
It's so
yes.
fascinating. Yeah, and I love that you say to also bring elements of nature, like the acorns, right,
Mhm.
into our home because we live very much in a world. I think you live in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
So I think you're probably more connected to nature in that sense. I live in South Florida. I mean, all of South Florida is very man-made.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Without air conditioning, I think it would not be inhabitable by humans. So a lot of the communities that are built here where I live too it's man-made in that sense. Yes,
Mm,
there's nature, right? But it's very much like you have a house here and there's a little bit space between, there's a house there.
yeah.
So, and everything is so like often people don't see even each other and things like that. So
Hmm.
I have recently, I think the last year especially, had such a deep craving just for nature.
Mm, yeah.
And for me right now, one thing I crave a lot is just walking barefoot.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it just feels so good. And
Hmm.
especially in those moments where I feel like, oh, I need to post something about my business. I need to write an email, or like, you know what? I just need to walk barefoot on the grass right now. And this is rejuvenating. It clears up my head. It actually makes me then later on write a much better email or whatever. Or I realize I didn't have to do that anyways, or better
Mhm.
idea comes through. So I love that. And the other thing is we spend so much time in our homes,
Yeah.
so yeah, I love that. And that's what I gather, like it comes easy to you, right? It's just something you even said, like you can do it on a Zoom call with people.
Yeah.
That's your gift, right?
Yes, it is. It's my intuitive sweet spot. Like if I
That's
just
right.
see the room and the
Mm-hmm.
conversation that opens up, we can do a lot oddly online. I didn't really know that that would be possible, but
Mm-hmm.
just simply by seeing the room and even the particular places that you point out, inform me about where we're headed. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I offer that design, declutter and design consultation. So I will
Mm-hmm.
walk you through, just rebuilding a little space for yourself. And I acknowledge in this world that we're living in, sometimes we push the garage door and go in and we, the next morning get in our car, push the garage door and go out. I mean, there are you can go days without touching the ground, but
Mm-hmm.
I think our body's wisdom more and more is asking for that kind of
Yeah.
no matter where you live. So it is challenging in the culture that we're in, but it's not impossible. And it's also like coming to our senses, seeing the natural world with fresh eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like anything else. When it's in your perspective, you'll see more of it. And I think we can find creative ways to bring more of this into our life and really just even crafting something with our hands, putting our hands to
Mm-hmm.
something,
I love that.
even if that means it can be anywhere. It can be in the kitchen. It can be, you don't have to be like this intimidated by having to be a super creative person. There's a lot of ways that we can
Mm-hmm.
approach this and bring it into the practical world. Yeah.
Mm. I
But
love it
yeah,
so
that
much. It's the simplicity and really focusing
mhm,
on the beauty. What I especially love as well is because this is also in agriculture. So as you know, we have deployed our soils for the most part, and the regenerative agriculture is really what we need, where we regenerate the soil and stuff, right? And also I feel like it's the same, like we regenerate the home we
mhm,
actually use what we have,
yes.
you know and because we're such in a culture, it's like always, oh, I need more stuff, I need to go buy things at Target or Home Goods, and
Mm,
often these like cheaply made things, mass production, right, that
yes.
are not very unique, they're not very authentic to
Mhm,
you, and actually connect back to seeing what we have, to the simplicity and the beauty that's all around us.
mhm.
And it's more about decluttering, not getting more stuff. Let's let go of some things and actually beautify what's already there. And obviously I love the part with the creativity myself, because I don't do it enough, I think.
Mm,
But I have had a couple of experiences where I made something in my house. Like it's actually something I learned I'm really good at. Like I had a table once and I had to create a side for it that was missing. I just went to
oh yeah.
Home Depot and bought a piece of wood, and I started to like make it and make the hole, and I was in such a flow. I felt so alive. It was so fun and it turned out beautiful.
Yes.
It gives you this satisfaction and deep sense of fulfillment that me in the victim mode, I was like, oh, I need the money, I need to buy a new desk, or
Mhm,
was like something that's already made, but me
mhm,
making it myself, using my intuition, my creativity, and or even like when you were talking, like, well, maybe just picking up some leaves and drying them and
mhm.
making a little picture out of it with a beautiful frame that you already have, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
can be so simple with that. So I just love that. So,
Yeah. And I just would love less mass produced things in the home.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't think we yet know that that is really harmful to us to just
Yeah.
simply have synthetic things all over. And so
Mhm.
many things now, even if they're made to look like wood, they're not actually real
Right.
wood.
Everywhere.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know it's not an easy fix, but there are simple things that we can do just by bringing
Mm,
in, natural elements, wood, fire, metal,
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
aside from plastic.
That's one thing. So, you know, people always talk about luxury, right? Where like, oh, I need the fancy Gucci bag or this kind of things. And that feels cold. It's my personal experience, right? It feels cold to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
And when I tune into like, oh, you know, like when money grows more and there's just more freedom to do whatever I want, I'm always like, can I get a piece of land? I'm gonna build a super eco-friendly house. I want to have all reclaimed wood. Like having a beautiful dining table made of reclaimed wood,
Mm,
that's like ecstasy to me. Like that brings me so
yes.
much joy. And even like smelling wood.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, I have chills.
It's so beautiful. And then yeah, these things I know exactly what you mean, which is almost everywhere now, this fake woods. And I still have a lot of wood things actually in my house, I have to say, but there are several things, even the desk that I'm using right now.
Mm,
It's not real wood. It's like one of these standing desks, right?
yeah.
So, um, yeah. But you ask me, I would always have the super wooden and of course we also know we need to be with like nature because I think that has been the problem because we have been depleting the forest so much that you know using the wood but when we do it in the right way and we reclaim it, I think there's so many ways to actually do that. And but that's really luxury for me, the more we are surrounded by the natural elements of mother nature.
Hmm.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and luxurious living, I don't feel like it's about things. It is more about love. So if we
Oh
have
yeah.
fewer things that we love, we're
Mm-hmm.
definitely better off,
Mm-hmm.
you know, things and then just loving people by
Yeah,
in our home and environment.
I actually am looking at it right now. The book by The Magic of Tidying Up,
Oh yeah.
Marie Kondo book, right? I had it in my hands yesterday. So it reminds me of that where she says like, oh, throw everything on the pile and then you even your clothes, you just pick up and only what you love, you keep, everything else you
Mhm.
let go. So that's so powerful. I love
It
that.
is. I am not a minimalist, as you can see behind me.
Yeah.
I I do love a good amount of things around. So I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like this is about like just utter simplicity where it's you and the
Yeah.
walls, but that is a
Mm-hmm.
start, that is a starting point. And I
Mm-hmm.
want us to feel hopeful about what we can do, even given the state of the world, because
Mm-hmm.
as we each do a little, we're doing a lot together.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so if live in a place where there isn't much nature around you, just if you have to get in your car and drive somewhere, that's fine. Just
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that,
Mm-hmm.
or find a space that you really love in the neighborhood, or really if it's just the smallest plot of grass, you can, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
you can still put your feet on it. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
us to lose hope that things are just too bad that we're not ever going to be able to change. I think there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot we can do in our very immediate worlds.
Yeah.
And so that's where, like, one-on-one, I would love to work with women just
Mm-hmm.
in their immediate world. And it's not, I mean, I too, if I had my dream place, it would be full of trees and land.
Mm-hmm.
And more, I just have to reconcile the trees that are in my yard, the land that I
Yeah.
do have. So it's 1 acre.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well, it's
know,
amazing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Do I
I had
really want to take care of 100 acres? Probably not.
yeah.
So enjoying what I have.
Such a good point, right? Because we're also always in this like, oh, when I have this, I'm happy, or this what I want. And I think it's great and healthy to have a desire, right? And a big dream being detached from it. But I had a similar experience the other day. I went here for a walk. Like I said, it's like a community around a golf club. So it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's not the dream kind of nature I would like to have. However,
Mhm.
as I was walking the other day, I literally for the first time, and I was like, have I not seen this before? They are magnificent, huge, incredible trees.
Hmm.
And like all over, like everywhere. And not there's also palm trees, but really like trees that seriously must have started to grow them over 40 years ago. They have
Hmm.
such big trunks and they have the roots that go all over like the grass. And incredible. And that's when I realized this moment, like, wow, like sometimes we just have to see what's right in front of us,
Hmm.
you know, instead of like, oh, there's no nature here and I need to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And like, well, if you cannot even see the nature here, like I'm not going to give you, you know.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So that really was a new discovery for you, those trees.
Yeah, from just going for a walk, and I think that time I also decided not to listen to anything while I was walking. Just
Yeah.
that also sometimes actually makes a big change. But I have to say, like when I run, I do enjoy also the music. It pumps you up a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I was actually walking, and I really had this moment where I was just slowing down and I was looking. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I really had this sense of like I was just like walking by it for years, and I
Hmm.
didn't fully see it.
Yeah.
So it was a very
That's wonderful.
profound, it was just like, I think last week or 2 weeks ago or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you can keep returning there, and making
Yeah.
new discoveries. I also have contemplated this, like, do I have to own something to enjoy it? So you don't own that land where the trees are, but
Yeah. I know.
can we not just enjoy, is land always ownership? Can we not just enjoy?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually like, yeah, because we have the money for it. Like, I don't
Mhm.
think any one of us owns any piece of earth, if you ask me.
Mhm.
Like,
Mm.
yeah, we like, yeah, we have put the rules in this world because of money that, and it's also like here in Florida, these gated communities, oftentimes. I mean, is that the real message we want to bring to humans, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, you have a point. It's definitely, it belongs to all of us, right? If you
Mhm.
ask me. So I think that this could be obviously a discussion because we have very sacred pieces of land in the world that belong to certain tribes and things like that. But
Mhm.
I love this perspective of like, yeah, you don't have to buy a piece of land to enjoy it. You can actually like decide to go for a walk. You can walk through a different neighborhood, or when you go on a vacation, you go on a trip.
Mhm.
Yeah, we get to enjoy all of that, or driving to the beach and the ocean,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That's available to all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, and the same with our home. You don't have to have a new home to make it what you want, and we don't have to
Yeah.
just make do with what we have. We can really
Mm,
create the beauty that
mm,
that
mm.
that we're craving in the home
Yeah.
that we're in.
Yeah. I mean, this really brings me back to this whole principle of gratitude,
Yeah.
which we also talk so much about manifestation, and where we always talk about what do you want? What do you want? And this whole idea, when people always talk about you need to know what you want, has always like really gotten to me. And I finally have kind of cracked it. Why? Because first I was always like, yeah, I don't know what I want and I need to know what I want. And, if I don't know what I want, I cannot manifest anything. But I have started to realize that my truth is, yeah, I can have like an overall desire, right? Like where I'm going. And it's more about giving to the world my gifts and every day letting life show me how this is going to look like. But instead of because when we say like, what do I want? It's always taking me back from the present moment,
Mm.
really, right? And I find it so much more important, everything that you have shared, to actually see what's already there. Because
Mhm.
then what our heart desires, even if I don't consciously am aware of it, it manifests anyways.
Mhm.
Because when you and I and everyone follows their intuition, it takes you where your heart, body, soul wants to go.
Mhm.
You don't have to like consciously know that, because often these things, like what I know consciously, what I want, may be totally based on my conditioning, most likely, and things that I already know exist.
Mhm.
What my heart wants, I have never actually seen in real life,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. I think that the question is what shapes us. What do I want?
Mm,
That maybe it never is an actual answer you can fill in that blank. But
mm,
I think as that question kind of works with us and moves with us, we can build the life that we want.
mm,
Those qualities that we want to have are not
mm.
beyond our reach, because even the
Yeah,
wanting shows that we have a little bit of that ingredient,
yeah,
or
yeah,
we would
yeah,
never want it.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I think it is a lot. if we distill it down to something very simple in the everydayness, that is what eventually creates the life, right? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
that huge want that creates the life. It's
Yeah,
the little minutiae of every day.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, like, I want to be more flexible with life.
Mm-hmm.
So as I learn to roll with things,
Yeah.
I become more flexible.
I think that's really, so thank you for sharing this, because I got more clarity myself. It's not about wanting things and stuff and
Mhm.
something external. It's about a state of being, right? Like you
Yeah.
say, I want to be more flexible. I want to be more loving, because that feels beautiful. Or
Mhm.
I want to have a home cooked meal. I want to
Mhm.
connect with nature today. So yeah, I think it's,
Yeah, and that
yeah,
could lead to something much bigger.
yeah,
But I don't
yeah.
know that we can go that far out to the bigness and bring it
Mm,
in. I think it's more
mm,
in those like ordinary
mm.
decisions we're making day to
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Yeah, I think these typical mainstream goals we always hear, that they feel empty to me. I think that's kind of what I'm
Mhm.
really realizing right now, and
Mhm.
giving also myself permission, yeah, to want those, the magic and the mundane, what's in our daily life, how we show up and
Yeah.
how we choose to respond to life, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we're exhausting ourselves by chasing that worldly want.
Yeah.
And at the end, then we've missed so many little moments.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really about taking a little deeper breath and
Mhm.
just noticing what's right in front of us. And, I'm talking about it because it's things that I have to, that I am practicing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. This is such a beautiful, like, conversation, Yvonne. I really enjoyed so much. And I would love to hear from you how people, how can they get in contact with you if they want to buy your book, they want
Mhm.
to perhaps work with you to have a session to create their sacred space in their home.
Mostly just going to my website,
Mm-hmm.
www.thepleasureofhealing.com, and there I have a link to a design link, so we could set up a Zoom call where we can just go right into your space. It's 2.5 hours, and we will cover the fundamentals of what we're talking about. And then if you want ongoing support, I can offer ongoing support, like over a
Mm-hmm.
10-week period where we're integrating more fully. But we can do a lot in just that first initial call. And my book is on the website as well, and I would love to share it with this audience. And I just was thinking, as you were saying gratitude, let me see if I can quickly find this page.
About pleasure of healing.
To see where it is. Oh, okay. Thank yous. Thank yous litter the sky for this ordinary day, for this healthy body, for this warm bed that covers, for this tea with cream and sugar, for this soap and hot water, for this closet full of choices. Gratitude, the most stunning of all. It looks terrific on you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Guys, her book is amazing. I highly recommend it. It's nothing like any other book, because there's a lot of graphics. The way you write, there's a lot of space between. It's a super easy, warming, uplifting read. I absolutely recommend you check it out. And my final question to you is, what's one piece of advice or some intuitive guidance that has been life-changing for you, for the listeners?
Yeah. Immediately, what comes to me is a more contemplative way of being. About 12 years ago, I stepped into that, partly because I was, I don't know, I had a dissatisfaction, I think, with the pace that I was keeping. I mean, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 25 years, but I kept a very high standard for myself and for my children, and
Mhm.
a bit of a perfectionist. And I just wanted more time to be. So I just want to invite everyone into the very life that they're living, that there are just little places of spaciousness.
Mhm.
Um, and space really means a blank slate. So it's not an agenda, it's not another thing to do. It really is dropping into your being. And that it's It seems almost insignificant, but it is truly life-changing over the course of a decade. And I would love to catch women at like 35, 36, 38, 40, because as you begin approaching perimenopause and menopause, your body will not cooperate with the pace that most of us are keeping. And it happens, it's not like a doomsday thing. I think menopause is a wonderful release into more authenticity, but I would love to catch women a little bit earlier so that, we can be daily creating more pauses and just blank space in our schedule. And if that's 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes. That is something. But that's, let me just sit with this for a minute if there's anything else around that, but just don't overcomplicate it and don't push it down the line.
I love it.
Keep
I
it
love
simple and present. Yeah.
You know what came to me right now? Because my podcast is called The Art of Slowing Down.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I'm gonna change it to The Art of Pausing. Because Kabbalah is also about it, the gene keys. I mean, this is all about slowing down, right? It's just
Yeah.
even a more simple way to say it, I think. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I
Thank
really
you.
love it because yeah, it's not the complicated way how we can change our life, but it comes from the simplicity, right? Which you so beautifully bring also with your 23rd gene key.
Yeah.
And reminding us of that. And when we can just cultivate that on a consistent basis, that's really like a topic for me recently. It's a consistency. You gotta show up, you gotta do it. Because it's probably gonna get us very uncomfortable in the beginning to just pause and to slow down and to just be. And because we talk about getting out of our comfort zone always with like taking certain actions, but this has been a theme with some of my clients. So like, well, yeah, for me, getting uncomfortable means to actually take a day off, to just do nothing, because our mind is so conditioned to always be on,
Yes. Yeah. And in the past, like when all my children were small, I wish that I could have just sat down where I was and just been like, just fall, instead of pushing ahead and pushing ahead and pushing ahead, actually just sit down, and it will look different in 5 minutes. What you thought was so urgent looks different in 5 minutes. And that is the power of a pause. But I love that for you, maybe even through this Kabbalah and even this conversation, changing the name of your
Yeah,
podcast.
I have been sitting with for a while, and I love because everybody knows me for slowing down, and also I love to talk a lot about money, but that didn't feel right. So right now, I'm so always like going with the flow of things, not forcing anything, but the art of the pause or the magic of the pause, the art of the pause. I love the art thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that inspiration. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I usually have to
Thanks.
sit with those things. Yeah. Yeah. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for, yeah, following your intuition, following your joy, being open to the infinity healing. Again, this is going to be in the show notes here. You guys can access it for free. Please enjoy it. See what magic unfolds for you from that. And I love your book. Again, I want to highly recommend it to everyone. Thank you for being here today, for sharing your wonderful wisdom from, your own healing journey, and from now like diving deeper into the pleasure of all of that. It's such a huge gift to the world, really. So thank you.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And I want us to all feel like we're in this together. No one has a corner on this. We're all learning, finding our way, and we're doing it together.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, listeners, as always, for being here with us. I am sure you loved this episode as much as I did. And again, thank you, Yvonne. And I'm very excited to be with you all on the next episodes.